Hello, long time no see. I am here today with a very long overdue book haul. I have quite a few books to get through, and all of these books are books that I have read over the past months or books that I am reading at the moment. Therefore they fall into the category of summer reads, but I also want to organise them by the type of book that I like to read in the summer, because if you're like me, you get some time off over the summer months. And during that time off, I like to read quite specific types of books. So I'm going to tell you about the books, but I'm also going to tell you about the little genres that I've created that they fall into. So I hope you enjoy. Sorry if it's long. The first book is what I would call a poolside read, although I didn't read it anywhere near a swimming pool, but it is Alexa Chung's It. This book came out last year, and it's kind of part autobiography, part fashion guide, almost like a scrapbook, if I can kind of show you. It has text, it has photos, it has doodles. It is about 200 pages long, but you could read this in about 20 minutes. Alexa Chung is very intelligent, she is very witty in places in this, and there's also a couple of moments that are very insightful and a little bit sad. She's also a very fashionable person and has a big love of clothes and looking good, and there's a lot of stuff about her style icons and her favourite clothes and stuff like that. I feel like I would have liked more text in this book. I would have liked to know more about her and get a little bit deeper than just that surface layer. But I did really enjoy this, partly because it reminded me of scrolling through someone's Tumblr. It's like a really nice, aesthetically pleasing blog. It has art, it has doodles that she's done, it has photographs that she's taken, and then it has some little paragraphs. So if you have an internet attention span, I think you would really enjoy this book. This is the paperback. It's in a lovely hardback, but now it's been released in paperback, and this is a lot cheaper, which is nice. The next book is the second book in the series that you've been meaning to get around to reading, but you just haven't. Just do it. Just go and get Hollow City. This is the second book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series by Ransom, and this book is so wonderful. It's almost 400 pages long. It was published in January of this year. If you're unfamiliar with the first book, it's about a boy named Jacob whose granddad has died, and his granddad used to tell him these spectacular stories of living in wartime Wales, where he knew all these peculiar children who could do all these weird things, such as a girl who could lift anything, she was so strong, and a boy who was invisible. And in the first book, Jacob travels to Wales. This book picks up where the first one left off. He is still in Wales, he is with the peculiar children, and they are in the middle of World War II. And I don't want to give too much away because it is the second book in a series. There are going to be 3 books, but I really loved this. I didn't like it as much as the first book, but very nearly did, and the cover is just gorgeous. The next genre that I have tapped into is a book by an American author you feel absolutely everyone in the world has read except for you, and for me it is Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. This is a short story, really. It's about 100 pages long. It's about an old man and the sea. I picked this up at my local library, and the cool thing about really well-known famous authors is that you can always find their books in libraries and charity shops, and they're pretty easy to get a hold of. I'm about halfway through this right now. I don't think I'm destined to be a big fan of Ernest Hemingway. Sorry, Hemingway fans, but I'm definitely going to finish this, and I will give it a little rating on Goodreads. If you want to follow me on there, you'll know what I thought. But I feel really proud of myself for finally getting this book and reading it, because I felt very left behind. This was published in 1951. Another book that's from my local library and that I finished whilst in Amsterdam at the weekend is Stephen King's Joyland. This is the second Stephen King book I've read this summer. The first one was called The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon, and it was published in the 90s, but this one is from just last year. And someone commented in one of my videos a few months ago saying you have to read Stephen King, and I said yes, in the summer I intend to really get into Stephen King books. So I was a little bit late at starting that, but this is my second King book. I really enjoyed this. It's called Joyland. It's a coming-of-age story about a 21-year-old guy who's had his heart broken, so he goes and gets a summer job at this like adventure park, mini theme park, smaller Disneyland type place. I don't know what the word is. He meets lots of really interesting people. He unearths a creepy old story about Joyland, and yeah, it's just a really good book. It was really fun to read. Like the first Stephen King book I read, it has a little supernatural influence, which I thought I wouldn't like, but it made sense to the story in both books. I think this book's cover is kind of misleading. I wasn't expecting what I got based on the cover, but yeah, it's very good. Published last year. Picked this up in my local library. Need to remember to return it. The next book falls into two categories. The first is a funny book, because I always read really serious books and I very rarely go down the humour comedy aisles. So this book is funny, and it's also a book that was turned into a movie recently. It is called A Long Way Down by Nick Hornby. It was published in 2005, and it's about four people who on New Year's Eve one year meet on the top of a very high building in London, and they all intend to jump off. The four characters are from four very different walks of life, and they all have four very different reasons for wanting to end their lives. Because they meet each other in these circumstances, they decide not to go through with it and to keep in contact and hopefully pick up the pieces and be able to move forward with their lives. I liked this book. I read it pretty quickly, but I didn't love it. I don't particularly like when you have multiple narrators, because I think it's very hard to get a realistic voice for each of them. I felt the same way about J.K. Rowling's The Casual Vacancy. So this has the four different characters taking each chapter in turn. There were a couple of really funny moments, but mostly I found it a little bit ridiculous, a little bit unrealistic, and when the ending came it didn't really give me much to think about or much to go forward with. So I like this. I got it in a charity shop. I like the cover, but I'm not crazy about it. Finally, we have the Thinky book. This is a 2011 book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking, Fast and Slow, like it says. It's an international bestseller, and Daniel Kahneman is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, I believe. He is a scholar, he is a very intelligent person. This book is about rationality, irrationality. It's about how we think and how we think we think. And I'm only about 45 pages through this. It does take a really long time to read, because you're reading about your brain and your brain is processing all this information, but it's telling your brain things about your brain that your brain thought your brain already knew, but it's turning all those ideas on its head, and it's telling your brain, no, brain, that's not how you work. No. I'm really enjoying this book so far, and I like to read books like this from time to time because I like to learn something, and I like to learn something different than what I'm learning during my academic year, so the summer can be a really good time to pick up something you'd never read and change the way you think about stuff, and I think that's pretty cool. Finally, I have to mention this book. It's called The Tea Lords, and it was given to me by Mike, a viewer who I met at the Amsterdam meetup we did at the weekend. Thank you very much, this was really kind of you, and I'm looking forward to reading this. That is all the books that I've been reading recently. Let me know what type of books you like to read in the summer months, and let me know if you've read any of these books. There will be links to buy them all from my book depository affiliate link in the description. If you don't know what that is, basically I get a tiny percentage of every book that is bought using those links, and that money helps me to buy books, to make more videos like these. So thank you if you use those links, I really appreciate it. I will see you soon, have a lovely day, goodbye.